You're with Julian on the Brown Note and a review of artistic titan Zack Snyder's Rebel Moon 2, which the entire universe has been waiting for since his epic June conquering Rebel Moon 1 was released last year, called the Child of Fire, and this one's called the Scargiver. It's like he's just ordered Hunger Games titles off of Wish. Everything's been said that there needs to be said about Zack Snyder, and I have said that, you know, there's the odd film like Watchmen and even the Snyder Cut that I have actually got a lot of admiration for, but it's piling up. The trash heap is piling so high up that it's a bit hard to ignore it at this stage. And in this case, the fact that he has tried to create an entire universe to become a franchise in space, but has ended up with the most derivative movies that you could possibly have made, where every single element has been made. I said the first film was probably the most derivative film I've ever seen, because every single scene, every single character came from another movie. And the idea that that is then some new IP that he can churn into this incredible new universe is mind-blowing. And I think that the voices of the Snyder Bros is quieter and quieter after this came out. It got even worse reviews than the first film. I think this one stuck around 13% on Rotten Tomatoes, causing the usual furore of how Rotten Tomatoes has a Zack Snyder. Like, there's two possibilities. Rotten Tomatoes, which isn't even a reviewer, has got the world's reviewers to attack Zack Snyder, or his films are crap. One of those seems to be more likely when I've watched his films and they're crap. So this time follows on from the first film, and it's a wild ride. So in the first film, it was a mix of the Seven Samurai, where the Sophie Passir character goes off to find a bunch of warriors to defend a village from an evil empire, which wasn't anything like Star Wars in any way. And that was the whole film. But we expected, when we started watching, for that storyline to play out, only to be given a half film, which really struggled to occupy over 2 hours of runtime, because there was no need at all in a film so lacking in substance to have a second film. This one doubles down on that. The first hour of the Scargiver, and at one point in the film, I think the lead protagonist says, "She is the one that gave the scar," and I just burst out laughing. It was up there with the Martha moment from Batman vs Superman. The first hour is just them sitting around talking. Like, you can literally fast forward to 1 hour, 5 minutes into this film, you won't miss a single thing. And you'll get the best part of all of the films so far. All they do is sit around and whine about stuff, and it's the script is excruciatingly bad. The characters are so ill-defined, and they all basically go through a teary thing about how they ended up how they were, and it was because of the evil empire. But it's so monotonous and it's so dull. So they spend that first hour where all of the Savior Seven Samurai are back at the village to protect the villagers from the incoming evil empire that isn't like Star Wars, and they just chat. And that is like the most boring hour of Zack Snyder's entire career. At least you couldn't say that Sucker Punch was ever boring. You were bombarded every minute by something. Here it is just saying, we did not have enough material for 2 films. Can we just sit around for an hour? But the final 40 minutes in this wild ride are the best of the 2 films, because it's an extended battle sequence and they stop talking, and it's actually a really good battle sequence. So I thought the big battle in the first film was horrendous. Like the direction and editing of it was just awful. But here, it's really good looking action. The spaceships and the fighting and everything else is pretty well done this time, especially the production design on the spaceships, and like the plot itself is so rudimentary. You have to be taking the piss a bit to say that this needed 2 films. I don't know how that got past the line. I don't know if... I feel like Zack Snyder is in a point where Michael Bay was around sort of like the 4th Transformer movie, where they just let him do whatever he want. But Michael Bay was still making $1 billion a movie at that point, whereas these are not going to generate that much income. So I don't know who's spending the money, but it looks really good throughout that 40 minutes, and they don't engage in too much talking. And I actually thought everyone's criticising the Anthony Hopkins character who plays a robot. I found him fairly interesting visually and quite enigmatic. There's nothing wrong with Sophia Boutella, but pretty much everyone else, apart from a couple of actors, are pretty dire and forgettable. Whoever played the protagonist, yeah, he was pretty decent. I didn't mind him at all. But it's so rote and rudimentary and predictable that you knew exactly what was going to happen from the start, right down to the denouement. So yeah, you're going to have a terribly boring time for an hour. And if you like lots of whiz-bang special effects, I kind of like the whole steampunk thing of the ships coming in and there's plumes of smoke and steam coming out from behind them. That kind of stuff was all right, actually. But I just don't understand how he's... One, talking about 2 4-hour versions of these 2 films. How is that going to work? The whole purpose, the whole reason the Snyder Cut of Justice League was so great is that he just made a completely different film. He used, a different visual aspect and sonic aspect and acting and character definition, different sequences are included. This is just going to be an extension of 2 films whose defining characteristic is being incredibly drawn out where they didn't need to be. Yet he's got another 4 hours to shove inside those movies with characters that are so limp that we just don't even care about, and a story that we don't even care about. And then he's talking about making 6 films. Who is letting him do this? How is that even possible? I don't know if it's a streaming thing, that they basically want to create content for their streaming channel, and this is actually cost effective, because who is giving him probably $150 million shooting budgets per movie for 6 of these films when the actual universe creating was terrible? I tell you what, so far, the universe creation of the Van Diesel sci-fi films wipes the floor with this. I can't remember what they're called now. Pitch Black was the first one. But those 3 films overall wiped the floor with the Rebel Moon thing as far as originality and interesting world building and characters go. The weirdest thing about this film is I actually wouldn't mind another one, because the only good part of the whole 4.5 hours so far was like the last half an hour of the second film. And it kind of made you want to just forget the first 2 films and carry on into something new. But should we really allow that as a society? Shouldn't somebody stop him?